This is a segment we call Rich Answers, where past podcast guests will provide me questions to answer, things they either want to know about me or my thoughts in general. And today we are given questions from our cousin Frank, who was just on the podcast pretty recently. And actually, just last night, we went to the Brewer game at Miller Park. Shout out. So I'm here on the farm, and I'm shooting this. Hopefully you can see the combine in the background. It is harvesting season. Cousin Frank is a very deep individual, and he sent us some really great questions. Some very thought-provoking questions. So why don't we get into it? So the first question he asks is, what is it that solidifies who you choose to record with? Great question. So for me, I always think of it like it's a podcast. I just want to hang out with people I like. So theoretically, it's just my friends. And there are certain qualities in people that I really appreciate that I look for in a way. So to get into the kind of the nitty-gritty details of how the podcast is produced, I have a business partner who helps me find people in certain fields. I really enjoy learning about science and technology, and I love art and just every day. I like getting into the minds of other people in different fields, and also just like kick it with people that, you know, I have very similar backgrounds with, whether it's writing or art or creativity. So we kind of have the system down where we look for people I provide like a list of 15 cities in the world that I just want to know more about. And then we have it categorized between people in art, applied sciences, life sciences, and natural sciences. So I'll get like a spreadsheet of like 300 people in their Instagram profiles, because I just like really enjoy Instagram. So I go through each individual's profile. So this would be like 300, it'll be like 300 profiles. I go through each one and I decide whether or not I would be friends with this person. And so then I kind of have this color coordinated system that I use, and then I reach out to those people, and then they decide to come on or not. And I view it as like a way to build long-term relationships with people from all over, and different life experiences and cultures. It's so much fun. But the main question is, would I be friends with this person? And to me, it's like people who kind of have this like optimistic view of the world, and who I guess understands the insignificance and significance of our lives, and just how small we are within the universe, and just enjoy life and try to make it better for others. People who kind of embrace that and want to, during their time on planet Earth, to make it worthwhile, and for the people that will follow us. So really, who I decide to have on, it's like, who would I be friends with? And also, like, what do I want to know more about? So that's question one. Question two. Cousin Frank asks, is being in front of the camera so much... I'm sorry, I messed up that question. Is being in front of the camera so much hindering how you live? Generally, I would say no. Not really. We've had discussions about this with technology and rectangles. He calls iPhones and cell phones rectangles. I don't think so. And we've had... I don't know, I don't think it hinders me at all. I will say at times, like when I'm on trips, I'm like... Sometimes I don't want to record, but I'm also like the creative in me and just like the person who's into like production and recording and just the whole scenes, just like different places is really cool. So I like put on my big boy pants and I record. Whether it's in New York or Arizona or Miami. And I have it set up where my recording setup is very agile. It's very, I can fit everything in my backpack. So it's not necessarily a chore to like bring out all this equipment and stuff. We're doing this one right now with just 2 iPhones and a tripod. Like a little tripod you can just like fit in a plastic bag, so it's really mobile. So like hindering wise, as far as equipment goes and hauling stuff around, that's not a big deal. Sometimes, and I think I'm still working at it. Like the skill of being on camera is really valuable, especially in the 21st century. And so I kind of view it as practice. A lot of times I try to I would used to try to have the video like so perfect. And I would like write something and then I would like try to read it in front of the camera, but make it look like I'm not reading. And I would get so like stressed out and stuff where I realized like I enjoy more of just kind of just going off the top of my head. It's more natural, and I think it comes with just confidence and reps. But I don't think it really hinders the way I live. Because to me, too, it's... And I think we discussed this at the Brewer game last night, but I see it, too, like all the recording as kind of like documenting my life in a way. And I'm like really happy to, like, after something I'm reflecting on, to like have that video. Like that's special to me. And so when I die, or if I die, I'll have like just volumes of just like all these reflections and just thoughts on life and the world. It's just a way for me to, I think it actually allows me to observe the world more, share my thoughts on the world and my own human experience in the world. If I didn't do this stuff, you know, you kind of just go through the motions, and you turn around and you're like, oh, I wish I would have done this or that, or wish I would have known what I thought during this time of my life and whatnot. So actually it helps me. I'd say it helps me. It helps me more than it hinders me. And until that balance is off, or like it changes, I'll just continue doing this. That was question 2. Cousin Frank, 3rd question. Are there any noticeable patterns between interview to interview? I would say, because now we have a pretty big sample size, right? We're over 250 episodes. I've talked to multiple people in the fields that I've chosen to like learn more about. Something I I pride myself in is recognizing people and how to communicate with people, and I notice patterns within people and the fields that they're in. So I know people in science fields, they're going to be their minds are going to be a little bit more detailed oriented, organized. They're going to be more objective about like what they see and what their experience is telling them, right? And then say like more in the art, they're going to be more in touch with their feelings and perhaps spontaneous and more leading with their intuition. And so it's helped me like even taking, because I'm really just like picking people's brains and asking them questions about life and just their thoughts about living in the world. And then people who I'm, like not recording with, it helps me better understand them. Is that what you meant by noticing patterns from interview to interview? I've noticed sometimes like people are nervous and I'm like, it's just another recording to me. It's interesting too, because now podcasts, everybody's got a freaking podcast, and with all this technology and great cameras on our phones, people are kind of used to being on camera in a way. Or I think with Zoom too, there's this application called Zoom where it's just like video chatting through a computer. I'm explaining this because cousin Frank isn't the most tech savvy or wants to be tech savvy. But since COVID and you couldn't meet face to face with people, Zoom, this application or software, really became a big thing. So people are used to just being on camera and doing stuff and video. So I feel like since COVID, people are just more comfortable with that kind of stuff, whereas before, people were more nervous, I would say. And they didn't know the technical aspects as much, where I would have to like explain stuff that I knew. Not that I knew a whole lot at the time, but I think people are more like willing to say yes. They're like excited to be on a podcast. It's like, oh, this is my first one I'm being on. So it helps my job. It helps with that. So that's another pattern. Just people more comfortable, being more comfortable with technology and saying yes. I think, well, certainly the people I approach, I wouldn't say this necessarily about the general population, but, and this goes back to the question earlier, like what solidifies having, choosing a particular guest to have on. And it's people that like are down to have fun and just try something new and say yes to things, say yes to opportunities. So I've noticed a pattern in that with the people I talk to. I've noticed also a pattern. This bothers me. This is something I'm trying to work on, and that's speaking Spanish. Speaking Spanish. I had this recent moment where a former podcast guest who lives in Colombia, we were going, I talked to like people all over. It's really fun, and I get to know them through our conversations, our recordings, and then I follow them on social media and I see what they're up to, and you just get to see their culture and how they live. And Colombia, I want to go to Colombia really bad, Bogota, and Man, smoke cigars, drink coffee. Oh, man. And it's like, yeah, and he was encouraging me to come down, and I was like, yeah, like I really want to do that. And I've been wanting to learn Spanish for a while, but just I don't want to learn it on screens. I don't want to take a class. Like, what is my way to do this? So I've asked people on before, and they've turned down my podcast request because they're not comfortable enough with their English. I've noticed that as a pattern. So I would like to get better at Spanish so that I can have that not be an issue. Like, let's have it in Spanish then. Like, that would be cool. And I'm a big fan of the Western Hemisphere. So I want to build more connections and relationships with people in, the rest of North America and South America. So that's a pattern I notice, is like some people aren't necessarily familiar with the English language or as strong. At the same time, too, there's like around the world, people know English. There's a lot of people that know English, but that's a pattern that I've noticed that I'm trying to like now work on a little bit. And so what I've been doing to learn Spanish is I just write all the time. So I start writing. I'll like write a paragraph like that I would normally write, right? And I have a Spanish-English dictionary, and so I'll then translate it, and then I'll bring it to my friends who speak Spanish, and then they critique me, and then we're like going back and forth a little bit. So that's something that's the approach I'm taking with it. So that's what I notice in some of the patterns. Question 4. Frank asks, what can viewers do to help you accomplish your goal? So I would say my goal is to build community around similar values, like-minded people. So I would say, share the content on social media, follow it, hold me accountable on social media. That's like one of my weak parts. But message me. Let's chat. Let's like talk more, and give the podcast a 5-star rating. Helps other people find it. That's helpful. Spotify and Apple. Tell your friends about it. Some grassroots word of mouth marketing. I think those are the big things. Or have ideas and present them. Like, I'm open to a lot of stuff. The big question I'm always considering and what everything I do revolves around is, how do we create strong and empowered communities digitally and physically in the 21st century? And so explore my curiosity, being open to learning and embracing ideas. Yeah. The last question that Frank asks is, has there been any point where you impacted a person's life from the recording? I'll get some feedback here and there. But with podcast guests specifically, it seems like after the recording, there's like this feeling of relief in that it feels good to just have a deep conversation with somebody, right? Where you're talking about Well, a lot of times I'm asking people about their own lives and what they love doing and what they're into and what they appreciate and the place where they live, what it's like. And I think people like talking about themselves, but there's like a deeper part to it, right? Where like I'm actually interested, I'm curious. I'm saying you as an individual have a unique experience in the world. And I want to learn more about it. I want to like better understand where you're coming from as a human being and what's impacted you and what you're passionate about and what drives you. Like, I'm very curious about that. And to me, everybody has a perspective to share. And so I find that people will say, like, it felt so good, or it feels very like therapeutic. And I find that too, as well, just like having this deep moment and building this connection. And we just spent the last hour of our lives ignoring the superficial stuff and the distractions and just like talk to each other as two human beings experiencing the world. And to me, that's beautiful. And I want to keep doing that. I want to do it all the time. You know, like I want to be recording all the time. And that's why I love this podcast, because it is so kind of open-ended. It's kind of whatever I feel like doing. There's so much autonomy, and it allows me to have an outlet for my creativity and curiosity and learning. And it's a vehicle for me to like meet other people I'm interested in meeting, and of cultures that I'm interested in learning more about, and fields that I want to learn more about. I love it. So yeah, I think there's a big part of that. And as we grow larger and we expand, and I imagine it'll continue to be like that. So, Cousin Frank, thank you for those questions. I appreciate it. And always a pleasure to hang out with you. And man, we have some great conversations and discussions about life. Keep on keeping on.